There were a lot of cars here. We had a professional development event of some type, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock, and the Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 will please come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Heidi Cater,
Here.
Sheila Pryor, here. Sarah Johansson,
Here.
Paris Bende, absent. Valentina Ayers,
Here.
Dan Ginestra,
Here.
Milan Sahoni,
Present.
Chase Anderson.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. If you wish to speak during the audience opportunity to address the board tonight, please fill out the form placed at the back of the room and hand it over to our district admin assistant, Amy, sitting to my right in the far corner there. All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. The consent agenda items are listed in the materials. The recommended action is to approve the agenda and the consent agenda items. Is there a motion?
I so move. A second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote?
Paris Bende is absent. Sheila Pryor, yes. Heidi Cater,
Yes.
Valentina Ayers,
Yes.
Dan Ginestra,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes, we have an agenda. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the report from organizations. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for a Wayzata High School student council representative to report on information and events at Wayzata High School. I would like to invite Peyton Moidle, Student Council Vice President from Wayzata High School, to please come forward. Welcome, Peyton.
Hi. Oh, geez. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful Tuesday. Today I heard from a classmate that she thinks Tuesdays are worse than Mondays, and I have to disagree. I feel like tests are rarely assigned on Tuesdays, and then there's never extreme conditioning in my sports on Tuesdays. And I just feel like I hear more laughter from my peers on Tuesdays rather than a Monday, or even sometimes a Friday. Anyways, yesterday was the start of our high school second term, which ultimately means that we have finals coming up, but we don't have to worry about that till January. Winter sports have begun preparing, like basketball, alpine skiing, Nordic skiing, synchronized swimming, and a lot more. This last month, girls varsity soccer and cross country won their state championships, and then boys cross country placed second at the AAA state meet. And I got 41st on my JV mountain bike state race. So I think I'm following that trend of winning. But I know Miss Pryor said to bring mountain biking up at our last hurrah for our team. So I thought I'd bring that up. So with winter coming up, Student Council has begun our yearly community fundraiser called Adopt a Family. And so we donate money to the IOCP and the Children's Hospital throughout November. And then we've made some improvements from last year. We've been working with more local companies and donors to contribute to our goal that we haven't done in previous years. At the end of this term, so last week, the Student Council hosted Sip and Study, which is an opportunity to give support to students and tutoring during their finals week. And so we were able to partner with academic mentors and the volunteer club to make this happen. Student Council fusion meetings, I think they began a couple years ago. It is a place for leadership and for leadership boards in clubs to meet together and work together. Those meetings have begun as of this week. And then another student council thing, sorry, attended the Hennepin Division meeting at Orono High School, and so we were able to work with them and connect with other fellow leaders. NHS, or the National Honor Society, is hosting the annual winter dance, the Snowball, I think in a month or so. And they just finished their term 1 blood drive. I think they have 3 of them. And it went really well. I think it was a duration of 2 days, and I didn't see anybody passing out. So that was a good thing. Lastly, Wayzata Drama Club and Theater Department sold out their fall play, which is incredible. I think it's Tartuffe. I don't know how to say it, but I thought it was chartreuse, like the color. But anyways, and it ran really well. And then this weekend starts their fall musical, which is Footloose. I'm going on Friday, so if you guys happen to go, maybe go on Friday so I can see you guys. And then I just really wanted to recognize the great leadership I've seen in some following clubs, which are Chinese Club, Environmental Club, and then the Youth in Medicine Club or organization. And I've seen a lot of improvement with their clubs. And that's it.
Yes, Sheila.
Hi, Peyton. I just want to say mountain biking is no joke, and I'm impressed by all of the athletes this year. So coming in 41st is still really impressive. So we did end the mountain bike season last month, and for anybody who doesn't know, it's an interesting kind of unique program at the school. It's a community ed and school partnership, and it goes from 7th grade through 12th. So I encourage anybody to check that out. It is a lot of fun. You can even get a varsity letter in it. And like I said, it's impressive what you guys do. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for being here. There was a time when the board met with the Fusion group, and we had a great conversation. So it's good to hear that those meetings are starting up again, and maybe there's a chance that we can do a board with the Bagels with Fusion or other things, because that's been a great conversation in the past. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Peyton. I just, when you talk about all the activities that you do and as a council as a whole, it just amazes me that you actually do all those things in spite of the heavy workload at school, and that speaks volumes to your ability to manage time. Time management is very critical, I think, at this point, and it'll help you as you grow older and older, and then it'll become a lot easier, I think, as you are able to manage time. So thank you so much. See you next month. All right. The next item on the agenda is recognitions, and I will now join Superintendent Anderson at the podium.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our school board meeting tonight. My name is Chase Anderson. I'm the superintendent for the school district, and it's my pleasure to convene the recognition part of our monthly school board meetings. We have quite a number of them here tonight, and a lot of people that we're going to be recognizing. So we greatly appreciate all of you who have come here to be recognized tonight and to join in on the festivities and the celebration. And there truly is a lot to celebrate in our school district. So our first recognition this evening, I believe are seated right here in the front, are our first of a group of state champions that we're recognizing tonight. I'm going to ask Coach Tony Pesnecker to come up here with your athletes that are here tonight. I'm going to share just a little bit about the wonderful accomplishment and give you and students and student athletes as well an opportunity to share a little bit if you would like to. So it's, again, our honor tonight to recognize our Wayzata High School girls soccer state champions. I think we can give them a round of applause right now. And I'll just share a little bit before I turn it over to Coach Pesnecker. The Wayzata High School girls soccer team clinched the 2024 AAA state championship title with a decisive 3-1 victory over Edina. They scored 2 quick ones and then held on tight through the remainder of the game. This triumph marks the team's 8th state championship, adding to their legacy of wins in 1991, 1996, 2000, 2002, 2009, 2011, yes, there's more, 2012, and now 2024. It's pretty amazing. I think in my hometown that's been in existence with a high school for over 150 years, would not have had that many state championships in every sport cumulatively during that century and a half. So it's really amazing that you continue that legacy this year. They completed the season with an impressive record of 19 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie, solidifying their place as one of the top high school soccer programs in the state. At this time, I'll turn it over to Coach Tony Pesnecker. Congratulations on yet another state championship.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having this event here for all the players, the cross-country girls, and other people who are going to get recognized. Just wanted to say how very proud I am of my team. It was a process, not just from the beginning of the season, but last year they were runners-up in the state, and they were very determined that they were going to go back and see if they could get that monkey off the shoulders. They performed very well. We had our learning periods throughout the season, but we just kept getting better and better, and it was one of the more dominant victories that we've seen. There was only, in the last 4 years, they've only lost 3 games, and the only team that has beaten them in 3 years, other than a shootout loss that we lost to Mounds View in 22, is Edina. We lost to them 3 times in the last 3 years. So they've really put together something that they should be very proud of. And one of the other things that we're very proud of is last year as runners-up, they had a team GPA of 3.85. And this year, as state champions, they were 3.86. So it's quite an achievement, as we all know how hard it is to do all your work in school and to still come out on top. So I'll just introduce the players who are here. I have Sofia Alvarez, our goalie, Nicole Mahabadi, one of our captains, Ella Brinza, one of our defenders, and Addie Mulo, one of our forwards. Did you want to say anything, Nicole? Okay.
Just thank you for having us here and for recognizing us. And like Tony said, it was great to get back to US Bank for the 2nd year in a row and to obviously beat Edina after losing 3 times. And also having almost no injuries this year was a big change from last year. So thanks again for recognizing us.
Thank you so much for being here. Having spent a decade and a half in Edina before coming to this role in Wayzata, it's always great to beat the Hornets. Good job. Our next group of state champions that are here tonight are Wayzata High School girls cross country team. So I'd like to invite all of those girls that are here tonight, their coach, to be recognized. I'm just going to share a brief overview and then turn it over to Coach Kelsey Beach to share a few thoughts, and whoever the designated spokesperson or persons are, tune up your speech because you're going to be on here pretty soon. I'm sure you have somebody all designated for that. So I'd like to share the following. The Wayzata girls cross country team secured their 3rd consecutive Minnesota State High School League state championship title, marking an impressive achievement in the program's history. The latest victory brings the team's total to 7 state championships, with previous titles won in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2017, 2022, and 2023. The Trojans capped off the championship with a score of 42 points and placed 3 runners in the top 10, underscoring their strength and depth in the competition. Congratulations to the team on another outstanding season and yet another state championship. Congratulations.
Thanks for having us here tonight. Yes, it's so fun to recognize this group. And this is my 2nd year as head coach, my 5th year with the program, and just such a privilege to continue the legacy and tradition of this team. But yeah, we're so proud of their showing at the state meet and the showing all season. Obviously, they're a very speedy bunch. We had the state runner-up in Maddie Gullickson, and we had three other athletes join her in all-state honors in Lila Golem, Jasleen Malherek-Ozario, and in Miley Clark. But I think the thing I'm most proud of from their season and from the state meet was the way they presented themselves. They showed up with a poise and quiet confidence, which can be challenging to do. They were coming in as the favorite and knew what a responsibility that carried and knew how to take deep breaths at the starting line and stay composed and knew how to be good sports to their competitors. I'm also so proud of their togetherness. Each of these athletes truly ran for each other above self, and that showed in the way they ran together and encouraged each other throughout the season and during races. And then thirdly and lastly, our mantra this season was show up positively. And these girls just did that day in, day out, whether it was during a grueling workout or adverse weather or the middle of the race. That's kind of a grind. So super proud of this group and really proud of our two senior captain leaders, Julia Link and Allie Clayman, who have truly just set the example and been great role models for this full team and really been the rocks throughout it all. So I think they're gonna share a couple words. Oh, I should introduce everybody, I'm sorry. We have Miley Clark, Lila Golem, Addison Neitz, Jasleen Malherek-Ozario, Rachel Tong, Aubrey Smith, Maddie Gullickson, Julia Link, and Allie Clayman. Seniors, come on up.
Thank you for having us here tonight, and I just want to say it's such a privilege to be a part of this team. I've been on this team for 6 years, and I never would have dreamed of accomplishing all the things that we've accomplished, and I couldn't have done it without my amazing teammates.
Hi, thank you guys all so much for recognizing us. I have been on this team for only 2 years, which is actually felt like a very long time, but these people, the way these people have made me feel like a family and how like just including they are and how we can look on each other for any support we need, running the sides. And I'm just very proud of everything that they put into this, all the miles, all the hard work and everything they put into this. It's just been a very fun season.
Works great.
Our next recognition is in the form of accepting some funding from the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. And I know we have 3 representatives that are here tonight. I'd like to welcome all 3 forward, please. Thank you for being here. This is I think it might be an annual tradition where we get to welcome folks from our Youth Hockey Association to meet with us, and they've been very supportive over the years, and we're just always very happy to welcome them here and to be part of our school board meeting. So I'd like to share the following, and then I'll turn it over to the team that's here tonight. The Wayzata Youth Hockey Association, in collaboration with the Wayzata Community Ed and the Wayzata School District Facilities Department, is pleased to announce significant upgrades to the Wayzata Central Middle School ice rink. With the installation of new dasher boards, the rink is set to open at the end of October. It's already open, enhancing the facility for our community of over 1,200 youth skaters and supporting our growing need for ice time. The Wayzata Youth Hockey Association is grateful to the school district for their partnership and commitment to these essential improvements. And I would say also that we are grateful to them for all that they do for our youth in the community and supporting us as strategic partners in developing our young people. We really appreciate it. So I was provided this longer script from Michelle earlier. Was this my script or yours? Want me to share a little bit? Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. So it's really exciting for us and very much appreciated to accept this donation of $300,000 from August of 2024 to replace the dasher boards, player benches, and shielding structure at the central ice arena, Central Middle School. And they're really critical components to the hockey rink for both functionality and also for safety. A few talking points about this partnership and the work that they did. The ice rink at Central Middle School is a critical component to the athletic programming offered in the school district, both for through the WYHA hockey and Central Middle School Phi-Ed education programs. This rink serves over 1,200 girls and boys hockey players who attend school in the Wayzata Public Schools. The sheet of ice supports a growing youth hockey program that is already maxing out available ice in the district. And I think anybody who's connected to the hockey world knows that ice sheets are always in high demand and hard to get. Investing in the maintenance and improvement of this ice arena ensures that our district's youth have access to ice hockey within the district. The cost of this new system was $300,000, and it was fully funded by the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. That's pretty amazing. All youth ages 4 to 19 who attend school in District 284 are eligible to play hockey with the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. And the program offers various age groups and levels that support hockey players across a wide spectrum of experience, from first-time skaters to highly skilled high school players. So we really appreciate that we have representatives here tonight. Michelle, are you the designated spokesperson? That's what my script says, or is it Greg?
I can't miss out on the chance.
All right, I know Greg will always take the podium. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people know it, but Wayzata Youth Hockey's real name is the District 284 Youth Hockey Association, and our boundaries are District 284. So of those 1,200 plus students, I think there's one that I know of that does not go to school in District 284. But so virtually we're supporting, and that's the largest enrollment in the history of Wayzata Youth Hockey. So it's the need for the rink at Central Middle School from a youth association program for kids of District 284 is greater than it's ever been. But we also noticed that I think the rink, and I wasn't there in the very beginning, even though I might look like it, opened between 72 and 74 at some point. So it's 50 plus years old, and it needs some updating and improvements. So Wayzata Youth Hockey would like to continue to work with the school board to do that and keep that arena available for students at Central Middle School during the day and youth of District 284 every night, Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., same on Sunday, as soon as we can open it. So once again, we would like to thank the district for all the support they've given the kids who play hockey for over 50 years. And I hope to see another 50 years, or as many of that 50 as I could possibly see, but we want to continue to make sure Wayzata Central Middle School Arena is open to the kids of this district. So thank you. We need to get some photos and then drop off the rest of the money that the association owes the district. I'm not sure if it's the largest donation that's ever been made to the school district for any facility, but we sure are happy to do it. Thank you. Make sure you get it. I don't carry around checks this large too often. Can we scooch just this way, two steps this way? So that, oh, there we go. I'll drop the check off with this depositor. Thank you.
Thanks again for being here tonight, everybody. We really appreciate it. So Scott will drop that off at the ATM on the way home tonight, I'm sure. Oh, yeah, that was awesome. We would just appreciate, again, another example of the generosity in the community and how wonderful people are to step up and help out in so many different ways. Our next recognition this evening is really a fun one that I actually got to be part of as well. So I'm going to share a little bit of information, but I would like to invite the Oakwood contingent here forward tonight. I think Sarah Beth Denai, the principal at Oakwood, and Amy Lean, the social worker at Oakwood. The three of us hung out a little bit in Washington, D.C. at the end of last week and celebrated the fact that Oakwood Elementary is a National Blue Ribbon School in 2024. I know there's quite a contingent of support here as well. And I'll just share the following and then turn it over to our two staff members that are here to share a little bit and talk about the award in Oakwood. Oakwood Elementary has been named a 2024 National Blue Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education. Oakwood is one of only 356 schools nationwide and 7 schools in the state of Minnesota to be recognized as a 2024 award winner. Oakwood is being awarded in the category of exemplary high-performing schools for being among the state's highest-performing schools as measured by state assessments or nationally normed tests. The National Blue Ribbon School Award affirms and validates the hard work of students, educators, families, and communities in striving for and attaining exemplary achievement. This is the second time Oakwood has been named a National Blue Ribbon School. The last time was in 2017. Wayzata Public Schools is proud to have 12 schools that have been recognized with this prestigious award. Sarah Beth Denai, principal of Oakwood Elementary, and Amy Lean, school social worker, and Chase Anderson, the superintendent, accepted the National Blue Ribbon School Award on November 8th, 2024 in Washington, D.C. Congratulations to Oakwood. Well done. I think we're going to show a brief video, and then we'll let Sarah Beth and or Amy share a little bit if they would like.
Cardona. And I want to say a big congratulations to each and every one of our 2024 National Blue Ribbon Schools. Achieving this honor means that your schools are raising the bar. Thanks to your amazing educators and students. It means that your school is the pride of your community and the model for schools across the nation. For more than 40 years, our National Blue Ribbon Schools have shown us what it means to raise the bar for our nation's students. You show us what happens when we focus on the instructional core, ensuring every student in America receives an excellent education that lets them achieve their dreams. You show us what happens when we listen to the educators in schools and classrooms every day who know their students and their communities best. And you show us what happens when we lift up best practices in instruction, when we empower students to uncover their unique superpowers and share them with the world. These could be skills like math or science, speaking multiple languages, or maybe just an ability to relate to those with different identities. No matter what it is, you allow students to realize their full potential. As we celebrate your achievement, I also want to recognize that our journey to raise the bar for our schools and students, it never ends. We know that educators hold the key to shaping the future. That's why this administration's commitment to supporting educators is unwavering. That's why we fight unapologetically to make sure educators and education leaders get the respect they deserve and the support they need. As a National Blue Ribbon School and educators, your journey has valuable lessons to teach other schools and districts and states across the nation. So let's normalize what you've achieved. And let's make sure that examples of excellence that you've pioneered in your schools inspire systems of success across our nation. Let's inspire other schools and educators with the power of your example. Let's share strategies for raising the bar for educational opportunity, professional development, and giving teachers the support they need. On behalf of the United States Department of Education, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and our entire administration, I want to congratulate you and say thank you for all you've done to raise the bar for education.
Oakwood Elementary School, Plymouth.
thank you for this recognition. Well, it was encouraged by the woman Abakumi, who's in charge of the National Blue Ribbon, that we dance across the stage. And Chase didn't think jazz hands would be maybe his style of accepting the award. But anyway, it was a real honor to be there and to be recognized, as well as to accept it on behalf of all of our Oakwood community, because we know it is some of those everyday things that happen that make that big difference in our students' learning. And so it really is an honor and a privilege to be part of Oakwood Schools. So thank you so much.
It was a great event to be a part of, and again, congratulations to the entire Oakwood team. And it's really a nice celebration and recognition for the schools across the country. And I've been there a few times over the years in my tenure as superintendent here, and each time I go, my wife gives me a directive and says, whatever you do, do not dance on that stage. So, and I never have, so, because I know she'll be watching and I'll hear about it. All right, congratulations, Sarah Beth and Amy and the whole Oakwood crew. Well done. Thank you so much. Our next recognition is for our Employee of the Month. And I would like to invite Nicole Semler forward, please, from Greenwood Elementary School. Congratulations. I'm going to share a script of nomination information that was submitted on behalf of Nicole, who is described as humble, gracious, and one who creates a sense of calm wherever she is. Well, she looks pretty relaxed, I think, over there. She is a wonderful teacher and a model of excellence. We are so lucky to have her in Wayzata Public Schools. Nicole cares deeply about our students and inspires us to be our best when interacting with others. She has an uncanny ability to solve hard problems by thinking creatively. She is decisive in challenging situations. Nicole always goes above and beyond to support students and staff at Greenwood. She's an amazing advocate for our students and always taps into the strengths of our students. Nicole is a natural leader on the Greenwood special education team and makes more than the average number of decisions each day. She's positive, knows her students deeply, and is diligent with data tracking. She dedicates every second of the school day to creating a positive learning environment for our students, and she is always willing to help and collaborate with staff. Nicole has high expectations for our students while also being in tune with how our students are meeting their basic needs. Similarly, Nicole consistently supports the team of resource teachers, special education paras, and general education teachers so that they are able to meet their needs and help our students to be successful. Her dedication to doing this hard work is truly inspiring. A whole host of caring comments, specific examples, and special memories were shared by the Greenwood team about Mrs. Semler, but suffice it to say, she will represent our entire school district incredibly well as November's Employee of the Month. Nicole, congratulations. And you can make a few comments if you'd like.
Thank you so much for the recognition. I really appreciate it. I am truly humbled to be here today and accept this recognition. I can't help but think that everyone from Greenwood deserves to be up here with me. It is a truly amazing staff to work with. When I first joined Greenwood several years ago, I was immediately struck by the really warm and welcoming and caring atmosphere there. I honestly was like, oh, is this just because I'm new? Like, are they just being nice because of that? That's not the case. It is a truly, the educators there are so genuine in their care for each other and for students. It's just amazing to be part of that atmosphere. I really would like to thank the general education team for all of their support and collaboration with us. That I think says a lot about our building leadership as well. They are always open to new ideas. And that is what is best for our kids. And they have some of the best ideas for us too. I want to take a minute to recognize my special education team. They are incredible people. Again, they could all be up here with me as well. I could not do a fraction of what I do without them. They're some of the hardest working and most creative people. If you have a challenge, they're the people you want by your side. They're going to figure it out with you. And they're just really incredible human beings. I'd like to also thank my family and husband for my support in education and my passion for that. And I also have to, sincerely thank our students and the families that share them with us. We have some wonderful parents who entrust us with their kids, and they are just I get to be a small part of their journey, and it is wonderful to watch them grow and see how the Greenwood team and the schools across the district really support them. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I believe our next and final recognition includes acknowledging somebody who recently submitted their intent to retire. And each month at our school board meetings, we do read the names of those who have made that decision. We only have one this month, and that is Kathy Luthner, who's administrative professional at the Welcome Center, and she served the district for 18 years. She's not here this evening, but we'd like to give her a round of applause and greatly appreciate her work. And I believe that concludes our recognitions for tonight. We thank you so much for being here, and we'll continue on with our Greenwood Elementary School report, I think. I'd like to introduce Dana Miller at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Congratulations to the honorees, and a special thanks to the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association for that very generous offer. All right, we now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the highlight of our regular meetings, the school spotlight presentation. Tonight, the spotlight is on Greenwood Elementary, and I'll turn it over to Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Leila Miller, to make the introductions.
Thank you, Director Sahoni, members of the board, Superintendent Anderson. Thank you for having us tonight. As you know, the Wayzata schools have been on a journey about the last 4 years to revitalize our personal learning communities in order to support each and every one of our students. Greenwood Elementary staff have continued this learning journey in developing high-functioning professional learning communities to leverage teacher and student and staff efficacy and collaboration in order to be who they want to be, working to ensure excellence for each and every student. Tonight with us, we welcome Principal Brad Gustafson, Dean Eric Homlin, and Literacy Coach Lauren Peterson to share some of this work at Greenwood. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for giving us a chance to share a little bit about the work our team has been engaged with this year and for the last several years. Couple quick notes before we dive in here. I do want to echo everything Nicole Sumler said, but our Greenwood special education team and staff really are inspiring, and just the leadership on that team is just awe-inspiring is the best way to say it. So I was just appreciate everything she said, and thanks for the support of her. And now to the reason we're here tonight, I just want to piggyback to what Ross and Cassie shared last month when the Sunset Hill team was here. Greenwood, while we'll be focusing on sharing how we're connecting with strategic direction number 2 and specifically on our PLC work, this is not something different that we're doing than in any other school, although we might have our own flavor and brand in some way, but it really is hopefully a representation of the efforts that teams and schools are doing across the district. And the way that we kind of look at it is lots of what Sunset Hill is engaged with, we care about and we're working on too. So together, hopefully it's a mosaic of lots of great educators' work and efforts to make a difference for kids. So with that said, what's the best way to click? Do I say click or, oh, awesome, thanks. Okay. Okay, amazing. Yeah, we thought we'd just have, this won't quite be as entertaining or engaging as what Sunset Hill did. I saw the video, that was amazing, but we are gonna do a little bit of a role play here. So if you could just reflect on the continuum and maybe put internally, I'm not gonna shout out or have to get a tattoo where we see ourselves or anything like that, but just reflect on where do you see yourself on that continuum, either as an educator or a leader, or just when you're thinking about who you wanna be for kids, someone who builds relationships or gets results, or somewhere along that slider. So once you have that in mind, I'll share just a couple quick fun facts on the numbers. So this was a national survey, and of the leaders or teams that saw their leaders focusing on relationships, they felt that the leadership, and this wasn't just connected to education, but 12% felt the leader was effective, or the leadership was effective. So it's surprising, or at least I was surprised. For those leaders and leadership teams that were focused on results, it was 14% of the people working on the team saw that as effective. And again, somewhat surprising. However, 72% thought it was really effective and great, I think was the survey language, great leadership when a team focuses on both. And I know who I think we want to be at Greenwood. We want to be, and when we talk about leaders, like everyone at Greenwood has tremendous leadership, in particular these two next to me as well, but we want to be leaders who help students achieve and build relationships and connection and help each and every student belong. So that's where the 72% comes in. However, here's the kicker. And this was a second survey. It was like multi-continents with just this vast number of people responding. Less than 1% felt they were in an environment where the leader or the leadership team was actually able to do that. I think a lot of people think they're doing that. We want to do that. We want to be people. But the question that seems unanswered largely in the world is how do we be that people and fulfill that promise? So that was not specific to education. So hopefully in education in Wayzata, the number would be much higher. And part of our goal and our work together is to try to make it be higher. So what does that actually look like? And that's where the next slide comes in. You've probably heard our team talk before a little bit in past presentations that were literacy related, that we want to help all of our students do two things, not just one thing. We want to help them learn how to read, but we also want to help them actually want to read, so that we don't have functioning, someone who smarter than me said it better, but like someone who can read but just chooses not to or doesn't engage in it. So that's kind of the both and that's who we want to be, and that it's a little bit like the relationship with a book or with yourself, with your identity as a reader and the actual skill to read. So then we'll transition now to our school goals and how they connect with our strategic directions. And we have two goals, as the next slide will share. And the first one is specific to academic achievement. And then the second one is maybe more relational, and it's the student empowerment, the student voice, our students just feeling like they belong and that they have a voice in their learning and that they also have the chance to learn from one another. So that's kind of our spin on the relationships and the results, those two goals together. Now, everything that, by the way, I'm the on-ramp here. The main event is coming up soon. So if you're wondering, just bear with me just for a minute. We're going to get to the meat and gravy of this thing. But some of the CEL work that's been happening in our district for the last couple of years with administrators and now our coaches just doing deep learning, there's some graphics that stood with us. So the next slide shows this staircase, and I can't shake this staircase out of my head. So it's always just what incremental learning, what small changes and small areas of growth can we make to make an even bigger difference? Or if we have 60, 70, 80, 90% of students or subgroups achieving, what can we do to have every single student feel like they're belonging and connected and also learning? So that's where the staircase comes in. Just what's our next step to get there? And whatever we portray tonight, we certainly don't want to suggest even, and we don't believe that we're in the ideal state. we're forever learning and growing, and some of this is messy and it's hard, and we learn, or I learn through mistakes, and they're like, I told you, Brad, you probably shouldn't have done that, but no, I'm kidding only slightly, but it's just been such a team effort, and we just want to authentically kind of open the curtain and just share a little bit of our PLC work. The next slide is just a kind of reminder that while we're sharing about our goal and the work we're doing to help all kids achieve, it's not at the expense of creating a culture that sees kids as human beings, as whole kids with, as the Hockey Association or somebody shared earlier, just who have passions and just so many talents in addition to math and science and reading. So all of that matters a great deal to us. So it's a both end for us. So with that said, just living out our core, our district core, one of our core visions or values, I'm sorry, is the concept of professional learning communities. So I was reminded that not everyone knows like intimately what that means. So just want to highlight a few things for us. It's not just collaborating. So that's on the next slide. It's showing up on purpose for a purpose. We want to help each and every child learn and not just achieve for a test, but just to be successful human beings who have limitless opportunities. And in order to do that, that often will require not just testing and retesting, but shifts in instruction, shifts in mindset, deep reflection. It is time and intensive work that takes teacher bandwidth and commitment. It takes vulnerability, and we are so proud of the Greenwood team for wading in these waters and growing so much and teaching us so much. The bullets on the right are the few things that we will highlight tonight. PLC work is really school-wide work. It's not something that happens in a meeting once a week. Again, it's a both and, where we meet and we connect to data and we connect with one another and we reflect on practice and what we can do different, or what we can try again, or who's getting it or who hasn't got it yet, all of those things. But those 6 bullets on the right are the few things that we're going to highlight tonight. So with that said, the first is, those were just kind of at the beginning of the year shared commitments that we made to each other. And we just said, the school year, lots can happen in a year, but these are the 6 that at the end of the year, we're going to feel like we spent a lot of time and put some energy on them together. So the first was just a commitment from the team to have a consistent meeting room outside a classroom. And that might sound like a little thing, but the thing that made me most proud as a principal, it was our teachers and leaders asking for a space outside of the classroom so they could focus wholeheartedly and not necessarily have drop-ins or other distractions. They're really valuing this work and trying to make a difference and grow. The photo of the class, of one of our separate meeting spaces, I'll also add, one of those is pre-flooding, so I'm having a little bit of PTSD, I think it's called. But the carpet's dried out, it's clean and looking lovely now. But some of the other cool things about that space are the technology to support the work and just be able to reference student data on laptops and connect to things like norms and essential standards. We've also had teams request visuals and posters that are not just there for decoration, but people have said it would be helpful to get, for example, a photo or a visual of the 4 PLC questions, which we'll get to later. So just the ownership in the room and the process. And 1 or 2 of those photos, I think we're on a, this is really geeky, but like a PLC text thread where we're like, hey, this is cool. And we'll share photos every once in a while or of just learning and pictures of the room. So I think we took one of those from the room. So if you're ever wondering what we're communicating about after hours, it's like PLC enhancements. So next slide is another connection or a commitment that we made at the beginning of the year. And I think for this one, instead of just saying we do norms, I just wanted to provide a glimpse of the journey that we've been on. I looked back in some computer files from almost 10 years ago and just did a summary. I think I might have even thrown it into ChatGPT, but I think I said synthesize several of the team's norms. So this isn't 1 grade levels, but it was kind of a representation on the left of what you would have seen in our school. And all of those are probably good and helpful, but they don't all ensure that we're helping each and every student learn if you really were to look at them. So the iteration after years of growth and conversation and just teachers continuing to push themselves and each other and keep kind of, being on the journey of becoming is what you see on the right. And that was modified from some solution tree training that Dr. Miller and the teaching and learning team have been super supportive just to build our capacity to be able to do this work and keep getting better for kids. But Our team customized them for us, and one of the things that I think is most exciting is at the top it says, we're going to start by answering every meeting, how are we going to improve learning for kids during this time? And then at the end of the meeting, did we do what we promised we would do? And just the reflection, last year we implemented this, but just people saying that felt right, and it was more focused than usual, and we continue to grow. And now it seems like anytime you share something, it continues to evolve, and there are different iterations. So now where we're at, we've had recent conversations on our building instructional leadership team that, you know what, we want to do those and live those out and not just talk about them in the sense of norms, but we want to be super authentic and just have it be a way of being. So we're in the process of checking in on what will this look like instead of just now talking about a checklist. Because when you start to do things more regularly, you don't need to sit and, it's just a really cool thing. You don't always need to recommit every single meeting that we're going to do this, because then it gets to be like, we know, we do it every meeting, that's why we're here. So it's an exciting thing, and we don't exactly know what's next, but we know that who we want to be has been a big part of that conversation. So with that said, thanks for bearing with the on-ramp. I do want to introduce, we'll start with Lauren Peterson. She's Greenwood's literacy coach. She also serves another school in our district. Her leadership and collaboration along with our dean, Eric Homeland, has been, I just don't have enough words, the capacity building that they've helped me and us do just with the high level of collaboration. It's, I could be up here for like 5 hours and I wouldn't even honestly be able to scratch the surface. So I just hope that you capture the essence of kind of what they bring into the space and how they've helped our school. So thanks, Lauren.
So as part of our work this year in focusing our professional learning communities, we took the work from the Solution Tree Institute that many of us got to attend in June, and really took that and put it into action this year. And so part of DeFore's work is having these 4 PLC guiding questions. And these questions really help us ensure that we are meeting our mission of reaching each and every student. So starting with that first question of what do we want all students to learn? How do we know that they've learned it? What are we doing when they haven't? And what do we do when they have, right? Really encapsulates both ends. Like, how are we ensuring they learn? And then what are we doing when they do? And that's been helpful to our work. So in part of that first question is what do we want them to learn? We took this also from Solution Tree. It's called the REAL criteria, and we engaged in a process of identifying our essential standards. And this happened at many of the elementary schools. So there are tons of standards, and all of them are important. And as part of our work, we needed to really narrow in on what are we deeming as essential. And instead of using some of our personal bias and what we think might be most essential, we used this criteria to help our teams align and identify what are those standards that are really going to give us the most readiness, endurance, accountability, and leverage moving from one grade level to another. And by doing that process, it's really helped us to deepen our work around those essential standards so that we really know what we're looking for when we're looking to see if students have or have not learned said skill, and we can adjust our practice accordingly. So that was a really meaningful process. And so then I'm going to pass it off to Eric. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, you know, we've gone to the PLC Institute and looked at those 4 questions and come back and thought, you know, we really want to have a system based around that. Because on the graphic up here, we want to be a leading school. And what it says up there, right, is high results and high understanding. And to us, that means that we have a high understanding of how our kids are being successful on those essential standards, because we have a system, we have a process. We can go back and tell you how we were successful, because then we can replicate that. So that's a big part of this. If we go to the next slide. We have created this PLC form, and it's based off of the 4 questions. I'm going to go through different parts of it here quickly. But each section of this is tied to those 4 essential questions. We want to make sure that we're continuing to be aligned grade level PLCs. So we know what that essential standard is. We know how we're going to assess it. We know what we want to do when kids learn it and when they don't learn it. So we actually have a comprehensive plan around those essential standards. So we can go to the next slide. This is getting a little bit more in depth on it. You can see we start off with question 1. What do we want all students to learn? And that's the great work that Lauren was able to do with PLCs across our schools, identify those essential standards. So we come to the table, we know these are the things we want to be able to guarantee to families. If they came into our school, your child is going to learn this, right? And here we have this system that is the ideal, is that it's going to lead us to that result. So we focus it on a learning target because with standards, they can be wordy, they can be multiple learning targets within that. We focus it on that learning target. And then as a PLC, the teams have been doing incredible work creating success criteria around that. And sometimes, I mean, all this comes back to student success, and that's our goal here. But sometimes the really cool thing, these PLCs, is listening to our amazing teachers have conversations about what mastery looks like with an essential standard. Because it might be, if we don't have this conversation, we might have different perspectives of that. So you're seeing educators go really deep on the things that we think really matter and gain a really good grasp on what that mastery looks like. What does it look like if a kid is close, if they're progressing, or if they need additional support, okay? The next part on there is the common assessment. We want to have, and sometimes we think of a big assessment, it might be a test, it might be something small, it might be an exit ticket. We have those conversations in our PLCs too. How can we collect data in an efficient way so we can respond in a timely manner and have that data be useful? If we go to the next slide, so at this point in the process, teachers have given the assessment, they bring that data back, and where it says section 1, 2, 3, that would have a teacher's name on there. And they'll actually chart students' names on the form based off of how the students did with that agreed upon success criteria on the agreed upon common assessment. We can then go through the levels of data dialogue protocol, which you see as labeled as observations, inferences, and trends. We'd like to start off by making observations specifically on what we see on the data up there, so that we're not letting any background biases come in. We're looking like, actually, like, we have this success criteria. This is what the data shows, right? I might think this kid's gonna do this well or struggle on this, but actually this is what it actually is. So we can make those observations, then build some inferences. Why do we think those things might have played out the way that they did? Then identify some trends. What are kids who need support? How are they showing up on the assessment? Kids who are progressing or kids who are at mastery, what is it that they're doing well? After that, we go to our next step, which is on our next slide here. And this is really cool when we get into questions 3 and 4, which can be a challenge to get to those sometimes if you don't have a system like this, if you don't have a process like this. It's easy to get stuck on the assessment. This helps us go to the next level. We know where our kiddos are at on these essential standards. And now we can create an instructional plan. What are we gonna do for kids, question 3, who didn't get it, right? If they're at a deep level of needing deep support, or if they're progressing, they're close. And then another thing that can easily be missed is, okay, the kids have it, they're at mastery, where do we go next? How do we extend their learning? That can be an easy thing to say, you got it, I'm gonna focus on everybody else, but we wanna focus on every child. So that's why we have both of those steps in there. I'm not sure if we have another slide. Okay, I think this is back to Brad, so thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I think Eric alluded to this, but all of those steps play out typically over multiple weeks. So we'll come together in meetings and work on and look at some things, and then teachers will go back and just do some incredible work, usually additional planning and instruction, intervention, whatever it calls for, and then come back with data and just go through the process. And then it actually cycles, and we're not this far this year yet that I'm aware of. Tomorrow, okay, where it actually then will, almost recycle is not the right word, but we can go up and either choose to keep the same essential standard, go deeper and work on different success criteria, or move on to another standard. The litmus for that is once 80% of our students have mastered an essential standard, it is reasonable to look at the next one, but we don't leave the 20. There are still those instructional plans and interventions that are happening, but our students as a whole are ready for us to also focus on that. So again, that's a both end. I think the grand finale, what we just wanted to share was we're really serious as a school district and on the Greenwood team about helping our students as whole, complete people, which includes the relational aspect of the work that is so important, not just with us, but with one another, and just knowing that they can come to school and have the skills to make friends and lifelong friends if they so choose, and have a deep sense of belonging and create the conditions where their voices matter and they're not just learning from the adults in the room for one another as well. That's kind of our student experience goal number 2, but also our PLC work is one of our primary ways where we're just leaning further and further into strategic direction number 2 that we highlighted tonight. So with that said, our team or the representatives of the Greenwood team would love to answer any questions if we can.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I think it was just fascinating to see all the data and everything else that you are hoping to achieve by May 2025. Thank you. Any questions? Sheila?
Thanks. Sorry about that. Oh, now it's on. You're all my witness that I didn't touch it and it turned on, right? Okay. Thank you for sharing that. We have heard a lot about PLCs before, and I think this is the first time that I really got a sense of what it's like, you know, like kind of a detailed picture of what it would be like to be in one and what kind of stuff, you know, happens. So thank you for that. It made me think of a question, though. When you talked about the data and you had like the table and you would say like one section and there would be a list of student names. What do you do with that data? And is each teacher responsible just for their own students, or is there some collaboration where you say, well, there's students in all of these classrooms that maybe are struggling, and you know, can we split them up, or you know, kind of make more efficient use of our time so that some teachers are just doing, you know, the students that need it, and some are maybe working with the accelerated students, and I don't know, just wondering if you had more details on that kind of stuff.
Sure, thanks. That's a wonderful question. So philosophically, and one of our teams, one of the strongest parts of our identity as a school community, I think, is trying and looking at all of our students as our students. So even if you really go back and read Nicole Sembler, the tribute that staff submitted, there's a lot of our students, and that's really how we view it. It's not my students, my class. So within PLC meetings and afterwards, teachers just authentically have a vested interest and show up caring about and noticing and helping one another. So that's really cool. So the short answer is it's not just worrying about a single class. The PLC meeting I was in most recently this week, the team had noticed right away that just how students in one of the classes did, and they were very eager to. I think one of the questions was like, "What did you do, so and so?" I don't need to name any names, but it's just that celebratory, like noticing and wondering and being just consummate learners. And then as far as some of the options, like how do we respond to the data as a staff? This reminds me of the staircase slide where I said, I don't want to portray that we're in the ideal. So all of our systems are up and running. There's things being, you know, as part of our school improvement plan, we're growing and building, and you just can't do it all in September, but it is forming. And it's very exciting to see our team build on strengths from past years and just get better and better and learn more. But one of the conversations that we're having more, I think, than we were ever able to do was some sharing of students, just flexible learning groups, skill-based. We've started at Greenwood now, WIN time, which stands for What I Need, and many other elementary schools in our district have had that time, but that's part of our system that we're constructing now. But that's also a good opportunity if a teacher or a team wanted to, I don't want to say trade students, but help and collaborate and connect with other kids. That'd be one way to do it. Yeah, but sometimes it's also just talking about practice. So teachers in the room saying, you know, how do you do that? And then going back with your homeroom class and trying that, whether it be like one of the things in a recent meeting was we had given a common assessment and we weren't 100% sure our students knew the skill the strategy. We were talking about thick and thin questions just for depth of understanding. And our kids did pretty well, but not as well as we want them to. But part of the conversation the team had was, well, we can give a burst of instruction in that. So they have that strategic conversation, and then oftentimes we'll go back to the room sharper, you know, iron sharpens iron, but sharper as a result of the conversation, do good work, and then come back together and see what it did and what we need to do next. So it really is a continuous cycle. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. This is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you mostly for all the work that you do to support our teachers and our students. It's really huge. This is incredible, and it seems like a lot, right? I mean, it's pretty intensive. It's taking a lot of time, and as you work to have the 80% and then the 20%, right? I mean, I can imagine what this is going to look, sound, and feel like in March. So, how do you keep it sustainable, right? How do you keep it sustainable? I'm assuming teachers see the benefit of it, and so they do that. But we also know there's a lot on our staff plates, and so how does that happen?
Yeah, you may get different answers depending on who you ask, because every educator will have their own experiences. I think one thing from our leadership team outside the classroom is just trying to be really two things, like purpose-driven, knowing that this work matters and we're not winging it. It's really based on intensive training and ongoing support, but then that I don't know, the art of just working with other human beings and seeing them as people who have needs. So part of the norms on teams is when we're working on these together, if a team says, gosh, sometimes it is really hard to show up at a meeting because I'm thinking about a student who needs X and I need to help with this and just, the list. So could we have 10 minutes to power through so that our brains can totally dedicate to this? So it's just trying to work together and have honest conversations and notice how people are showing up and being willing to modify and adjust as the year goes on, because we know who we want to be. We have a really good system that's helping us grow, and we also have ridiculously talented educators with voices and experiences that are everything. So trying to bring the best of all that together to co-create this.
Okay, that's super helpful. And then if I can ask a second question, and this is a little off, but I can't have Greenwood come in without asking about student voice, right? And so you're talking a lot about teachers making plans and going through this, but I'm certain there's a student voice piece in there. And can you tell us anything about that and where that shows up?
Oh my goodness. It did feel really strange to come here, I think for the first time I could ever remember and not have a room full of kids. So thank you for speaking truth into this room. And I don't even know how to answer it because other than guilty, not, as far as presenting on PLC is not there, but I will say, I don't want this to sound anything but how genuine it is. I think our team cares about kids and their voices and their experience more than we could ever even hope that they would, if that makes sense. So the work that we do, and when we look at a form, this is not a form for us. This is to help promise that kids get what they need just to do really incredible things now and into their future. And the way that teachers are even owning the data and doing certain things to make sure that students that are on their mind are never forgotten and lost is really really impressive. So even when student voice isn't physically manifested at a microphone in a room, I feel like our team, I'm just inspired by the way that that's the whisper and the heartbeat of the work. So,
and maybe it's fair to say it's your way of being.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
I would like to ask to clarify about academic achievement, the goal. What does it mean?
Great. So thank you. I had so many great notes coming in, and I really didn't go off the notes, so thanks for bringing us back. So our academic achievement goal, I'll just break that down just a little bit because there is a lot to it. So when we talk about trying to increase the percentage of our students in K-5 in the typical growth or aggressive growth category on FAST testing, what that means is FAST testing, I think it has 4 categories of growth. So flat is not helpful, moderate isn't helpful. When a student is showing up and scoring in the high risk area or some risk area, and I'm using that language intentionally because kids are not high risk or some risk, it's a score that they earn on a test. But if they are in that range initially, then our school goal is to have a higher number of kids earn aggressive growth over the course of the year. Because if a student starts the year scoring high risk, but they make flat or kind of at grade level growth over the course of the year, then at the end of the year, while they will have grown 1 grade level, they will not have caught up to where we want them. So the goal specifically, it's for all students, so it touches upon typical growth for all kids, but we're very cognizant of the fact that we're aiming for aggressive growth for the students who need that to be reading well at grade level standards in every grade, not just by third grade. Does that help clarify?
Yes, thank you. And next question, if I can ask, is to be honest, being in education, one thing is to help out students to read and then being happy, celebrate it, and then we call it summertime's happened. Autumn, and it feels like a student is rolling back like a year with results. So what do you do to make sure that student want to read?
Yeah,
Obviously,
thanks.
one time you learn a skill, but then it will be nice that student continues on his own. What are the secrets?
Yeah. So a few school-wide secrets. We know so reading motivation actually is part of the science of reading. It's not necessarily the one that's most talked about, but it is part of it. So we want kids to be motivated to read. One way that we do that is by investing in their reading identity. Sometimes that is actually going at it sideways and seeing them as a soccer player, or however they're identifying in the things that they love, because they might not love reading yet. But if we can see them and relate to them and then connect them to literature, or even share our own reading life, thereby basically creating culture. So if you walk in our school, Chase always teaches under promise and over deliver, but I feel like I'm about to over promise. So fasten your seatbelt here, but I don't think you'd be able to take too many steps until you would just notice there is a culture of reading that people are trying to co-create here, whether it's from the staff photo that has every teacher and parent and person in our school holding a book. It's not just a composite. It's literally, so kids are looking for the teachers they adore, but also asking what books their teachers adore. Like all of these things layered on top of each other, in addition to really solid instruction and intervention. But when you create the culture where it is cool and expected to talk about what you're reading, to ask classmates what they're reading, kids start to rise to that occasion. And by the way, it's not, we also try to not have the identity be, oh, you're just a soccer player, or you're just someone who likes reading. So even though I talk about reading a lot, I'm really intentional to let our students know, I also love fishing and some other things, so that they know you don't, like, because some kids reading is not their first love. But if you help them realize it is okay to like lots of things, and reading might not be at the top of the list, but lots of people have that as something that they also like. So it's, I would just say layers and layers. So if you're walking down the hall and just noticing kids and classroom teachers advertising what they're reading for their read alouds, and kids, a lot of our classes have like dry erase things above coat hooks where kids are updating what they're reading. It's just, lots of little things done with intention to create the sum total of, we want this to be a place where kids don't just come to learn how to read. That's part of it. That's really the low bar. We also need to make sure that they leave here with feelings that reading, that they see themselves as a reader. So another thing, and this will be my last point, is there are things historically that we've done in schools that can be problematic and not helpful to kids and not have them fall in love with reading. And no judgments to anyone who is currently using a reading log, because they can be used in a helpful way. There's an art and some research behind it, but they also can have the effect of turning kids off to reading. So just having intentional conversations about, like in my own home when our kids were younger, my son wanting to read a book, and while it doesn't count, that can't be on your reading log. When he was a voracious reader, going into school, if we're doing things that have kids feeling the opposite or moving further away from their identity as readers, or like being like, this, I guess this isn't for me because of all the strings attached to reading, those are things that we just want to reflect on. So no judgments to anyone, because I probably led the charge on half the practices that I just mentioned, but at least creating a community where we can have courageous conversations just to ask, how is that practice working for our readers? And if it's working for 80% of them, what about the other 20 who it's not working for, who don't see themselves in it? So probably maybe another answer to that would just be really intentional conversations in a culture where those conversations can happen. Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for coming tonight. And I want to thank you, the three of you, for leading with your vulnerability and with your seriousness and your expertise. The way that you presented this is striking to me because it creates while it looks very structured, I think it's also very nimble, right? So that you can change things for each student however is necessary in that moment. So I really, really appreciate that as a way towards each and every. So I love hearing the details and I love getting the opportunity, but I'm gonna zoom out for a second and I'm hoping you guys can help me. So how does this overlay? I feel like the real criteria was an example of how you're aligning the processes between schools, but I'm wondering how does this overlay with BUILT, and does it overlay with BUILT? Because it's a great system that's set up at Greenwood, and every school is going to look different, like you were saying, and this is Greenwood's brand of it, but how do you share your findings or share your learnings?
Yep, so I'll start with BUILT and then I'll zoom out district level. So our BUILT team and the teacher leaders in our school who we get to work with at BUILT, lots of just give and take and exchanges. So if you remember the slide I talked about where we talked about the norms and the iteration over the years, I think literally last BUILT meeting, maybe the one before, we just had an honest conversation about how norms were working, because we do not want to be people who just show up to a room where we could literally make a difference and keep growing, but jump through hoops. And the BUILT team said it so much more eloquently, but we just had a conversation about the purpose and the need and actually self-reflecting on where we are. And our school district has some really cool protocols where teachers and teams can self-reflect on norms use, and I think it's called levels of implementation. But in many areas and aspects, our team, at least as I see them, as I see our teachers, are living out the norms in such a authentic way, how we and how I was presenting them to kind of just like, okay, Brad, you got to follow the rules. You got to do this. This is what you do. But we just had the conversation like, who is this for and what is it trying to do? And it was just a really cool thing. So that's just a microcosm of the type of conversation that happens to reflect on practice and how we might get better and grounded and who do we want to be. And it was much more detailed than that. And teachers had some really great things to say. But this work intersects, it's actually more than an intersection. It's an extension of BUILT, probably like a symbiotic relation. I don't know if I've ever said that word out loud in my life, so forgive me, but it's like a two-way relationship where BUILT learns and grows and supports PLCs and the latter, okay? At the district level, you know, I know Greenwood the most because I'm there every day. However, what I'm very confident in is every elementary school is invested in this learning work. And while the approaches and the needs might vary slightly, I'm very confident that excellent work is happening that is grounded in research-based practices with PLCs, partly because when we show up at the Solution Tree Conference, we see schools from across the district and get to cross-pollinate and have conversations too. Some of what we do, you know, back at Greenwood, I use the word brand, that was probably not the best word, but just what, like our approach, the way that we've approached this learning work, we try to also be really strength-based. So Lauren and Eric have some skills that literally I still knock my sock. It just is fascinating how deep it is. So we've tapped into those. So some of the work that's emerged at Greenwood, it might even be a teeny bit in addition to like Eric in particular's job description working with students, but it's been so transformative. How could we not like learn and grow with that? So just with the partnership with him, Lauren, and our incredible teachers and the give and take, that's how it kind of landed, or landed isn't the right word, but that's part of what we're trying and how we're doing it. However, I'm very confident every school would have different causes for celebration specific to this work.
One question that came to mind, you mentioned you can have tests or you could have kind of exit tickets or exit slips. And I was wondering kind of what an exit slip would look like.
Yeah, that's a great question. Cool.
Yeah, so the team, you know, the PLC team will determine, you know, their standard, and then they'll break it down to a learning target, something a little bit more minute. And when you look at, let's say you look at a quiz or a test and maybe it has, you know, 10 or 15 or 20 things on it, there's a lot of different learning targets taking place on there. So we might only be looking at 2 questions from that test if we were going to bring that back, because that might be what's really focused on the skill that we're working with kids. So we can create larger assessments that are just around that learning target. But another thing we can do is an exit slip. So an exit slip could be just a small piece of paper. It could be digital. It can be all kinds of different things. But it's just a quick little check-in on whatever that skill is. So I think Dr. Gustafson mentioned we have a team who is working on thick and thin questions, right? Are you going to depth with your question, or is it kind of a surface level question? They could create a large assessment around that. They could also create just on a paper before you leave or before you head out to recess, jot down a thick and thin question from your independent reading book. And then we have that. Put it on a Post-it note, and then we can sort them later. So the idea is that there can be really quick and efficient ways, especially as we talk about how arduous this work could be. There's ways, and as teams, we collaborate around it to make it more efficient and lighten the load a little bit for teachers so that we can get those quick check-ins throughout the work. Because we don't want to just check in at the beginning and at the very end and not know what that path was like getting to the final summative assessment, right? We want to have those quick check-ins. So exit ticket is one way to do that. Just a quick little paper, whatever it is, so you can demonstrate the skill quickly and a teacher could sort those out. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have an observation, although it may not be correct, but let me know if I'm wrong. I'm referring to the academic achievement goals, and I see that you want to go from 55.9% to 57.9%. So that tells me it's a very, very tough job. It's not easy to do that in 1 year. So is that correct? To move it by 2%?
Yes.
Okay. So we started in fall, and it's been 2 months now since that program started, and you're going to assess, give us the final results in May. I'm assuming that you are not going to wait till May to figure out that whether you are on track. And if not, are you nimble enough to change the processes or tweak some of the methods to make sure that you're back on track?
Great. The PLC cycles that we alluded to are nimble by nature. So the good news is the Greenwood team, the leaders here tonight, we have a mindset where we believe in the process and the work that our teams are doing, and we're receptive to feedback and making adjustments. And the PLC cycles is very nimble. So as we're getting data and responding to it, we're seeing our students who are responding in really favorable ways, just with a burst of instruction or a little bit more time. But then we're also seeing kids who haven't learned it yet, and that's tracked, and it's never lost. So as far as being nimble, I wish I would have, that's such a good question. Usually I can think of an analogy, but it just reminds me, if you're on a journey with someone, you're constantly walking and surveying the land, and you're not just going to take a course when you're noticing it's not working for everyone. So part of that is going together. So if we have kids that haven't mastered it yet, it's keeping our eye and helping them while also having a system that helps us respond to everyone. So it's a pretty complex thing. Sarah, to your question earlier, the work that teachers do, I was actually reflecting, sorry, Eric, I was listening to you too, but I was also reflecting on what teachers are pulling off when they're trying to help kids. So in a classroom, or a formative assessment is being given, and maybe it's just through conversation, like a teacher giving kids a question to talk about, and the teacher circulating the room to hear kids' actual thinking and voice. And in that moment, the learning that happens, but the responsibility on the teacher, when you think about it, they're not just listening for depth of knowledge and connection to the learning target and mastery of that, but even the social skills and the anxiety level of so-and-so and the proximity to so-and-so because it works better not that way, and the person who's getting picked up a little later or has a group time, so we gotta get this lesson in so our kids can get their tier 1 instruction and not miss it. It's just fascinating, but at the heart of it, I guess maybe for the time of night, I'm getting a little verbose, and I apologize, but I believe we are nimble, and it's a really cool system, but we also know that we understand the mission, so therefore, if something isn't working, even for one student, we're set up to have that conversation too.
I think, Dr. Gustafson, to also add to that for you, Dr. Soni, is that those assessments that get to that score, we also give those now 3 times a year. And so part of the built process is, so they're doing the exit ticket. So if we think about those levels of data, they're getting that higher level of data 3 times a year through those assessments while getting that day-to-day data through their PLC. So it does allow that nimbleness. And then if I might, going back to Heidi's question a little bit around the PLCs, is that, as you know, this has been a huge revitalization dedication from all of our buildings, E12 plus through transition. And what we've been able to do with the principals is really come to an agreement on what are the non-negotiables isn't one, but what are the linchpins of high-quality PLCs? And then buildings take that from there and put their building culture and their leadership skills and all of that to that. So with that said, I do want to say that Dr. Gustafson and his team are being very humble tonight. They have done incredible work in leading this PLC journey. And what's super incredible about that is with our collaboration amongst our literacy coaches and sharing those skills across that, they're constantly, we have another one here tonight, they're constantly talking about, well, this is what's being done in my building and this is what's being done in our building. So that I'm just so proud of, with 9 elementaries, just extremely proud of the work that all 9 of them have done with their literacy coaches and with their leaders in those buildings to take that ground level linchpin work and then elevate it to just incredible heights and work to support each and every. But I do want to make sure that Dr. Gustafson and his team at Greenwood get the due recognition for the depth of work that they have done on this, because it's something to be quite proud of.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you, Brad, Lauren, and Eric. You are duly recognized. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sorry, the audience opportunity to address the board. No, okay, nobody has filled out a form, so thank you. Moving on. We have the administrative reports and recommendations. There are no superintendent and teaching and learning reports today. We do have the finance and operations report presented by Executive Director Scott. And Scott will present the combined financial reports for the month ended September. Scott.
Perfect. Thank you, board members, Dr. Anderson. Just going over quickly, these are the normal reports that come to the board. I'll just highlight on that first page, but also know that we go through this much more in detail and pretty thoroughly with our finance committee of the board. So all the details are kind of in there, but I will highlight. With this one, this is through the first 3 months of our fiscal year. Really, when you look at that, July and August are pretty quiet for us in the big picture comparably. So September is really the first month that we start to see a lot of activity for the district from a fiscal perspective. Another thing to point out just on the revenues is that the CARES Act dollars from the COVID pandemic came to an end for us September 30th of this year. So we had until that time frame to expend those, and I believe we can draw on those until beginning of December. So those are coming to a wrap. I wonder if we switch to the next page. All right, so as I've said a few times, the first 2 months really don't add a lot of value to these reports. This is the first month that we really start to see that. Schools are kind of a way different beast. We are a fund accounting organization, and we're also very different from like a regular for-profit business. We don't close the books on a monthly basis. You would never ask us, how did we do this month? That's not a thing. We're a fiscal year organization. So, and what I mean by that is our expenditures fall into place based on contracts, based on a lot of different things, and our revenues are metered by the state of Minnesota, and it also impacts when we get our property tax revenue. So there's a lot of moving parts. So when we start to look at this, this is the first month that we really start to pay attention to it. So when you look on that page up there, our property taxes, it's been our consistent practice not to start recognizing those until December. So the board will see those during that month. State aids, as you'll see there, are right on pace with what we have expected. As you know, we've jumped with enrollment over the years. And so it's not surprising to see this fluctuating a little bit, but we're right in line with where we believe. Federal aids, as if you recall from last year, This number is closer to 5 or 6 million with those CARES funds winding down and with us using some federal funds to cover state aid tuition bills. You're seeing that kind of go down to right around that 2.7 million. We will draw on those more consistently this year. So just pointing that out. Miscellaneous revenue, that just varies significantly throughout the year. Food service fund, just to point out, this is slightly above last year, but right, kind of somewhat in line. If you recall, last year was the first year of the free lunches. So everything changed for them. I feel like this is the first year it's kind of caught up. They're a lot more like the general fund. So they're getting payments after the expenses take place and after they turn in for those reimbursements. Community service fund is right in line with last year, doing really well. And then the debt service fund and the construction fund, debt service, that is what it is. Obviously, we levy 105% of that through our levy, and those are paid throughout the year. Construction fund, those dollars that are in there are basically just interest income that the district gains off of the funds sitting in the construction fund. If we turn to the next page, as you recall, we are a service organization, and so the majority of our expenditures, roughly 70 to 73%, are made up of salaries and benefits. So when we look at this, this is the first month of where I said we have that activity, meaning that's when we have 2 full pays from the month of September. So we start to capture and look at that. So this is probably the first thing that we focus in on right away, because if they're not in alignment, we always would probably start to investigate. Because this is a really high macro level overview. But as you can see, our salaries are right in line with where they've been in the prior years, and our benefits are right in line with what we projected as well. As I pointed out on several occasions at the meetings, our purchase services and capital expenditures can vary significantly. And what I mean by that is they're typically payments to service vendors, so it's our transportation and other areas. We can't control when they bill us, so we might see fluctuations where we might be low a few months and we might see some big payments. Supplies and materials, that's usually front-loaded, which would make sense, right, as we're starting the year. So, but those are kind of variable. We watch those when we see variability. Obviously, our team is watching those very closely. Food service fund, they are a little bit under expenditures from the prior year, but more in line with 2 years ago. I know that our director of Wayzata Cafes, Michelle, had mentioned last week, don't quote me, but at our my direct reports meeting, she said we had our first over 10,000 meals day. So with growing enrollment, we're seeing a lot of demand, and that team has reacted quite amazingly, because as we talked about, the free meals is an important thing, and the district obviously appreciates it, but she's dealt with a lot of things on the back end, unintended consequences of you're feeding more kids, you need more storage. That wasn't part of any funding that we received. And then just the pure space and getting kids through the lines to work through the lunch hours and make sure kids are able to get through and have time to sit down and eat. So I commend her for that. Community service fund is right in line with what they would project and very close to prior years. And then the debt service fund, like I said, that's pretty much just happens when it happens. The construction fund, those are basically just abatement bonds that are left in there. So we project that we will be spending the rest of that in this current fiscal year. The final page, this is just where we're sitting with cash in the bank at this point. And obviously that fluctuates tremendously. As I mentioned, we're metered payments from the state of Minnesota, and we do get those huge influxes from the county, from our property tax revenue, which we actually just received. So I think this shows right around 49 million. I think as of today, I think we were closer to about 85 million in the bank. That sounds like a lot, but then it goes very, very quickly as we get into the year. Any questions on the finance reports?
Thank you, Scott. Questions? Scott, I have one question. So the liquid asset fund with MISLAF, that's as it says, it's liquid. So is that something that we can dip into in case of an emergency? And if so, is that considered? It's not considered a part of the fund balance, right?
No, that would be the difference between cash flow and then the fiscal financials. Like It's PFM and PMA. Basically, the dollars sit in there because we're in such a rich interest environment right now still. Those funds sit in there, and we do have access to them pretty much at any time. But there are two different funds inside of there. We try to leave one alone, and then we transfer money into a closer to cash account. But it's available to us as we need.
We cannot put that in our budget as a fund balance, though.
Oh, no, totally separate, because
Okay.
that's more of a cash flow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then I know it's too early. We have been through COVID, we have gotten out of COVID, and we're slowly creeping back up. And I know it's still going to be a while before we come back to where we feel comfortable that we are in a very sound financial position. From a high level standpoint, where do you see us this year compared to last year?
That is the crystal ball question, but that is a great question as well, and a fair question. It is a little bit early. I'll just say, as you know, we're required by statute to bring to the board a budget to be approved by June 30th for the following fiscal year. That creates challenges because we don't know how everything's going to lay out. I can tell you, as the audit is winding down, our finance team, led by David Draskovich and his team, will work with other district leaders and people in their departments to start to put together the revised budget. We're going to try to get on that a little bit earlier. Obviously, the audit is a heavy lift, so I don't like to look at David and his team and say, all right, let's go. I want to let them breathe a little bit and do some of the day-to-day stuff that kind of gets put on the back shelf. But that will be in the process. That'll give us a much better idea. I think some of the things I can tell you just from what I know without any scientific numbers right now, I can tell you we budgeted 12,684 students. Obviously, that's our primary revenue driver. We're up roughly 100 students on that. I can also tell you that we have, without it in front of me, and I can tell you more once we're done with the revised budget, but I would say we've spent probably every single penny, plus about 200K on top of that, adding back staff to kind of to accommodate the student growth that we've seen. So I view that as a positive. As you recall, with the preliminary budget, we forecasted roughly 2.7 million revenues over expenditures. As you know, and I said at the time, do not fall in love with that number, because I guarantee you it will change, because there's so many things outside of our control. We didn't know where student growth would come in. That number where I say we're 100 up right now can vary because we see a lot of seniors kind of that adjustment at the end of the year. We see move-ins, move-outs, but we feel pretty confident about that. But I think we're still sitting in a good place. And just kind of a reminder, because you brought it up, just coming out of cost containment, I would just say, you know, we are cautiously coming out of cost containment. As I pointed out in the budget presentation in June, there's a lot of variables outside of our control that could have big impacts on it. Obviously, one is the student growth. What happens next year? We have to be mindful of that. It can depend on negotiations. It can depend on other unforeseen costs. There's just a lot of variables at play. So just to kind of keep that in mind, and also a reminder that we are now back to 2% this year. The legislature gave us 4% last year. We are back to 2%. Next year, we hover between 2 and 3%, depending on inflationary factor, and then that's on 60% of our dollars. On 30% of our dollars, we're roughly getting between 3 and 4%, and then on the remaining 10%, it's usually flat or no growth. So I don't want to take Dr. Anderson's words. They're stealing from him, but it's a really bad business model. And so, as we all know, our expenditures far outpace those revenues. You'd say, well, how are we doing this? There's no secret, it's enrollment growth. As soon as that slows, things will change. So that is why we kind of have our fingers on the pulse of that and watching it continuously, which is why we're in the middle of another demographic and boundary study, because we are growing so fast. But I think it's, and I know I come to the board every time with it, but we are very lucky we have this growth, because coming out of cost containment, between making the very tough cuts that we made, we also were ballooned back up with the massive growing enrollment that we've experienced. Without that, the cuts would have had to be deeper, and I don't think we would have come out nearly as we are forecasting, pending no variables happen, that we will come out of cost containment. It was a mixture of the cuts that were made and the massive growing enrollment.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. There are no other questions. Thank you so much. All right. Next, we have Human Resource Services report presented by Executive Director Stacy Voss. And Stacy, I believe, has one item for board approval tonight.
I do, just one. Good evening, Chair Salhoni and members of the board. The school board's bargaining team and the Wayzata principal representatives reached a tentative contract agreement on October 14th, and subsequently the Wayzata principals voted to ratify the contract on October 17th. Before you is the summary of the proposed two-year contract. The overall package was an increase of just under 8%. The negotiation team members were Scott Gangler, Tyler Shepard, Karen Keffler, Xavier Reed, and Ross Williams for the principals, and a special thanks to Dan Ginestra as the board member representative for your patience and support through that process. The recommended action is before you.
Thank you, Stacy. So, colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the contract with the Wayzata Principals Association for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2026, as agreed upon by the bargaining teams and ratified by the Wayzata Principals Bargaining Unit. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Dr. Sahoni. I just wanted to say thank you to both parties for just conducting in such a professional manner. I was grateful to engage, grateful to Stacy Voss for her leadership during this process, grateful to Mr. Gangler, principal at the high school, for leading his team of principals. I'm glad for them to come to the table and have a discussion about a wide variety of things, from pay to policies and all those different things. So our principals, we know, build our schools, and we know that contracts are an integral part to that. So thank you so much for all of your hard work, everyone, and looking forward to how all this shapes out. So thanks so much.
Any other comments? I want to thank Stacy for her hard work and Director Ginestra for participating as a member as a representative of the board. So thank you so much. Again, the recommended action is to approve the contract with the Wayzata Principals Association for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2026, as agreed upon by the bargaining teams and ratified by the Wayzata Principals Bargaining Unit. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote?
Valentina Ayers,
Yes.
Dan Ginestra,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Paris Bende is absent. Sheila Pryor, yes. Heidi Cater,
Yes.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes, the motion is approved. Thank you so much. All right, there is no other board action tonight, and the final item on the agenda is board reports. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for board members to update school board members on school board related work or to make announcements of interest to the public. Today, we have Director Ginestra with a report from Intermediate School District 287. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, really say thank you to Intermediate School District 287. I've been very fortunate to serve as Wayzata's representative to that organization for going on 11 months now. It's been a really great journey. On October 15th, just about a month ago, we visited, as part of the Get on the Bus program, the North Education Center in New Hope, where we were taken by administrators to see upgrades in facilities to, with concern to student safety. We saw students in programming, got to see some of the specialized classrooms that they've had constructed over the years, and really just sharing a very constructive dialogue with our principals, our deans, and our ESPs and other staff members. So really my gratitude to them for having us in their buildings. We know it's a lot to coordinate the transportation and all that, so them making that possible really just really means the world. Our next Get on the Bus will be on December 3rd. We'll be visiting the Career and Technical Center down Eden Prairie, and we hope to have you all along. I'll have a RSCP for that soon, and we hope to have you there. So thank you so much, 287, for allowing us to partake in this program, and we look forward to having board members join us, as Dr. Sahoni did, to this visit to North Education Center. So thank you so much.
Colleagues, any comments or questions for Dan? I was fortunate enough to go on that October trip, and I look forward to doing the same in December. And I urge board members, if you are able, please join that bus tour. I think it's a great experience. So hopefully you can. All right. Our next board work session will be held on Monday, November 25th at 4 p.m. in this room. This concludes the Wayzata Public Schools regular board meeting. I want to thank everyone for their participation in a process that is focused on students in our district. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The time is now 8:45. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 is adjourned.